The original Dane was met with rave reviews by just about everyone, except us. This is the Dane 2.0, and Fringe Sport has addressed a lot of the criticisms we had with the first version. Don't get me wrong, everyone's favorite overly critical reviewer still found some issues, but I will admit this is now a much better rack and cable system. It's also a little more expensive. So let's make some comparisons, since we've seen almost every rack cable system out there, and find out if it's still the high value play it once was. But first, let's address the elephant in the room. What was my problem, or in this case, problems with the original Dane, and has Fringe Sport made it right? And am I gonna call out the people that called me biased, an idiot, or whatever else? No, I'm not gonna do that because I'm too classy to say I was right and you were wrong. The Dane 2.0 release is a bit tricky. Yes, Fringe has responded to my and the community's feedback. That's awesome. That's what you want to see. But if you bought the 1.0 and the 2.0 comes out 8 months later, how happy are you about spending money on a product that clearly needed some work? Was the 1.0 rushed, and has Fringe done enough to the 2.0, or are we going to quickly see a 3.0? Well, one of my problems with the Dane was it was a white labeled product. The 1.0 was basically Vesta's Pro Series 2-in-1 with a 1-to-1 pulley ratio. That was great for consumers when they raced to the bottom and kept undercutting each other's sales, but it doesn't matter how cheap it is if it doesn't work for you. And the Dane didn't work for my wife, and quite honestly, with cable travel issues and a lot of other poor design choices, I simply expected better from Fringe. And we should. We've reviewed and liked a lot of Fringe's other products. They have the best customer service of any big company in the home gym scene and an outstanding warranty to boot. Lifetime on the rack and 5 years on the pulley system, which is years longer than most. So up against Vesta, I'd take Fringe any day. So yes, I'm happy to see Fringe make meaningful changes and differentiate themselves, but have they done enough, and how does the 2.0 now stack up against what's become a stacked playing field? A huge part of the appeal of the 1.0 was the price. $2,500 shipped for a 3x3 rack system with a built-in selectorized functional trainer made it a huge value play, especially if you got it during one of Fringe's sales. In our review, we compared it in both price and function to Rep's Athena because it was, and still is, the most logical comparison. Here's the wild part though, you're never gonna believe this. The Dane 2.0 and Athena now cost more money. It's almost like prices just always go up. But the price gap is basically the same. The Athena still costs about 30% more than the Dane 2.0 when you match their builds. Now, you can go plate loaded with an Athena and pull some accessories off, but to keep the comparisons fair and simple, we'll say with identical builds. The 2.0 costs $2,800 shipped, or $3,000 if you want the stainless steel front uprights we've got. That price includes a pair of sandwich J-cups, a landmine, the spotter arms, some D handles, and the front extension feet, which all come standard with the Dane. The other accessories I've got, the shelf, pegboard, bumper plate storage, low row foot plate, and seat are extra, but we'll talk about Fringe's attachments as we go because they can be a bit hit or miss. Take the optional lap pull-down seat, for example. Longtime viewers keep coming back for my brutal honesty, and while I appreciate Fringe sending us the Dane for free for a review, I'd skip this. It's priced well at $200, but it jumps more than my wife testing the Voltra. And while they've updated the Dane and many of their other attachments, the seat hasn't been touched and needs some tweaks. It moves too much during pulls and the cables are still in the way, so it's awkward trying to get your pin in that back hole. If there were only a way to fix that, like, I don't know, maybe moving the pin's position like they did with the spotter arms after we called them out for it, or maybe add a tightening knob like Rep's Pegasus has. Luckily, the Dane and Athena share more similarities than their price and function. They're both imported 3x3 metric racks with 1-inch holes and 2-inch hole spacing, which means attachments from one will fit on the other. Even better, they have the same width. They're both 47-inch wide racks, which is awesome because if you own a PR5000 and are still waiting for Rep to release a pegboard for their rack, you can just bolt Fringes right on. It also means, since I've talked you out of Fringe's lat seat, if you decide you like our content and want to support the channel, you can use my affiliate link and spend twice as much on Rep's Pegasus seat because it and other metric 3x3 attachments with the same specs will fit on here. Speaking of specs, another big part of the appeal of the Dane is its pulley ratio and effect on the weight stack. Whereas most companies use 2-to-1 pulley ratios for their cable system, Fringe has gone with a 1-to-1 ratio. That's important for a few reasons, but it's also why we were very critical of the 1.0. There's always trade-offs. So while a 1-to-1 ratio gives you access to the full weight of the stack, meaning if you load 10 pounds, you're pulling 10 pounds, it comes at the cost of the cable travel and the weight increments. Here's what I mean. The Dane has dual 160-pound stacks, so I have 160 pounds per side I can utilize, or 320 pounds if you link the stacks because you're an absolute monster who needs that kind of weight. To put that in perspective, even if I pay more to upgrade the stacks on an Athena to get 220 pounds per stack, with a 2-to-1 ratio, the maximum weight is actually 110 pounds per side. That 2-to-1 ratio effectively cuts the weight in half, but it also doubles the cable travel and gives you smaller weight increments. Meaning on the Athena, every 10-pound plate actually feels like 5 pounds when you pull it. So on the plus side, the Dane gives you almost 50% more weight for less money. But what about those trade-offs and how has Fringe addressed them? With the 1.0 at 6 foot tall, I could make it work, but on certain exercises, I really had to position myself perfectly or I'd run out of cable. With a 1-to-1 ratio, the weight trolley moves the same exact distance you pull, and you've only got so much real estate inside the rack before you max it out. To give you a few more inches to work with, Fringe made the weight plates shorter and wider, effectively shrinking the total height of the stack. Sure, the stack doesn't look as long and large as before, but I've heard it's not about the length of your stack, it's about what you can do with it. Whereas with the 1.0, I often felt cramped up against the rack trying to make it work. I haven't run into issues with cable travel on the 2.0, and I think Fringe did a great job figuring out a solution there. The biggest issue on the 1.0 though was the starting weight and weight increments. Due to an oversight that honestly should have been caught, including the weight of the entire trolley mechanism and not just the top plate, the lowest weight you could set it to was 15 pounds, which is ridiculous for a functional trainer system and rendered it useless to my wife on many exercises. Combine the starting weight with the Dane's 10-pound weight jumps, and even for exercises she could do, progressing to the next weight was difficult. Going from 25 to 35 pounds on something like flies is fine for me. I'll just pretend to be a real man and tear something. But for her, progressing on exercises wasn't easy. How did Fringe fix that? Well, they did and they didn't. The top plate is now smaller, which reduces the starting weight to 10 pounds, which is pretty much the standard for home gym functional trainers, so I'm happy with that update. The weight increments are still 10 pounds though, so it goes 10, 20, 30, and so on, up to 160 pounds. It's not ideal, but not a deal breaker either because Fringe is working on an adder weight system to address that. Until then, you can use a gym pin or find a cheap alternative on Amazon like we use, but I would have liked that to have been addressed for the release of the 2.0 since it's something we talked about in our original review. We've covered the specs and technical stuff, but none of that matters if the price doesn't match the performance. And no, I'm not talking about the rack. I won't go so far as to say all these 11 gauge steel 3x3 rack systems are the same. There's definitely quality levels, but this is a great rack. We've used it for several weeks, it's beyond solid, and the fit and finish is better than a lot of the options you'll find at this price. Sure, Rep has higher end touches, but you can do the same things on the racks themselves. I know I tend to come off as overly critical or maybe just negative, but that's just my personality. I'm really popular in real life. To be clear, the 2.0 is a much better system overall than the original, and the upgrades to the Pulley system are maybe the best example of that. In our original review, I stopped just short of going full engineering nerd mode and explaining the multitude of problems with it. I know it's popular to say it's the aluminum pulleys, but what the pulleys are made from has no real effect on the smoothness of the system. It's based on the bearings, pulley diameter, cable, groove size, and a lot of fun math nobody wants to hear me talk about. So suffice it to say, this is much improved, resulting in a smoother pull. For any functional trainer type movements, this feels great, and it's another big upgrade from Fringe. This isn't just a functional trainer rack system though. Fringe sells a lat seat and low row footplate for this, so I'm treating it like an all-in-one since most people buying this are looking for a solution that does everything. Don't mistake that for me saying it's going to compete with Rep's Aries 2.0 or Rogue's Twin Stack. Those are two of the best options out there, but they also have price tags that make the Dane look like a budget system. That may actually be a good bartering chip with your wife though. Hey honey, I was thinking of getting this, but as a frugal, responsible, and loving husband who's looking out for our children's future, I thought we'd save money and get the Dane. So, how well does it work for pulls? I'd say good, not great. While you're saving a lot of money by getting this over something like Reps and Rogue's systems, there's some sacrifices in functionality, but these things might not necessarily be problems for you. Here's what I mean. Unlike a true all-in-one, the Dane doesn't have a dedicated high pull point, and there's no integrated way to combine the stacks. So if you find the Dane's 160 pounds isn't enough for you, you can either use a gym pin to add more weight or link the stacks with something like Darko's Longy Bar. Easy enough, right? Well, doing a lat pull off a trolley results in a lower starting point than a dedicated pull point would, which may limit your range of motion. For me, at 6 foot, if I'm trying to get much of a stretch, I often run out of space depending on the attachment. You may also feel a bit cramped up against the upright as the pull point isn't directly above you. Not ideal, but not bad. And Winnie, who's 5'6" and built differently than me, doesn't have any complaints or issues. I find rows to work even better, at least with the optional low row footplate to brace against. The pull is smooth, just like it is for all movements, and it works well as long as you don't mind sitting on the floor. Without the footplate, the limiting factor for me is trying to stay in place as I go heavy. So let's say you want to row off a bench. Not a problem with the adjustable trolley, but you may need to DIY something or find another solution for bracing because this footplate can be a little tippy canoe, as my grandma would say, if you push on it at an angle. It's too bad they didn't add a second hole like this one, but if it actually lined up with something, you could then lock it in. I'm getting negative again, and Winnie says I need to be more positive. So overall, I really like this rack. Fringe has addressed most of our criticisms from the 1.0. I'll make Dan put up a little list here, maybe with some cool effects thrown in to show all of our critiques and Fringe's responses. I don't know. Sorry, Dan. But most of our complaints have been addressed, from the big stuff like the starting weight down to the nitpicks like there not being a hole in the top plate for the weight selector pin, so they added one. The Sandwich J cups didn't have UHMW protection all the way around them. I feel like Fringe was like, that guy with these and just said, how much UHMW can we fit on them? They've done a good job of balancing build quality and pricing. This is a good value play for what you're getting. The spotter arms are very well done, and they, like all their attachments, have UHMW on all the rack's contact points, so they're not gouging things up. The trolleys are light and easy to adjust. I, of course, like the red accents on them, but I mean, look around my gym. I'm a sucker for red. Maybe you'll hate them. Yeah, the D handles are still cheap and basic, just like the included landmine, but they do work. If you want higher end touches, Reps Athena is a little more refined of a system, and their accessories are a little better made, although you could just buy their stuff and put it on here. Rep also has more possible build configurations and finish options. They've got both 93-inch and 80-inch height options versus just 93 inches here, and their 4-post build out is shallower than the Dane. The thing is, if those things don't matter to you, they both basically do the same thing. So while the Dane 2.0 isn't perfect, it is cheaper and a very good value rack. Now, you've made it to the end of the video, which means now you have to subscribe and let me know what you think. Thanks to our Patreons, and thanks for watching.